Hello there, today I will be making a card using my newly purchased flower layering dies. I will also be giving you my opinion on this product, and I'll be sharing some tips and tricks that I've learned while using it. I hope you'll find them useful, and now let's start from the very beginning. I have made a 5x7 card base out of white cardstock, and now I'm going to create the background really quickly. I'll be using this die from Trellis corner die set along with the matching outline. I'm placing it onto my card base and I'm leaving about half an inch space at the left side as well as at the bottom edge. I'm taping down just the insert, not the outline, and then I'm going to sand it through the die cutting machine. This die creates a negative trellis pattern. I'm using my tool-in-one by Spellbinders to clear out all the small pieces. Then with the outline die, I'm going to die cut a triangle out of patterned paper. The one I'm using is from Celestial Paper Pack by Altenew. The tools and supplies I'm using will be listed on my blog as well as down below in the description box. Then I'm going to apply some strong double-sided tape at the wrong side of the triangle die cut. I'm only applying it along the two sides, leaving the longest diagonal side open. This is important since I'm going to create a pocket. I'm trimming off the extra tape from the corners. Then I'm going to place the triangle at the inside of the card, just like that. I'm making sure it covers up the pattern completely, and then I'm taping it down with the washi tape to secure it temporarily. Then I'm peeling off the liner and closing up the card base. This way I have transferred the background to the other side of the card. This background also works as a pocket that you can put a gift card or some money or a tag with a note or a handwritten letter in. Now I'm going to create a really large flower arrangement using Garden Picks 3D die set by Altenew. Here are all the dies. I keep them on a magnetic sheet. By the way, they were not connected, so there is no need to clip them apart. There are 3 and 4 layer flowers included in the set, as well as some 2-layer leaves, and there is also a guide to help you with the assembly. The guide suggests that you use 4 different colors of cardstock for 4 layers of the flower, but I'm going to act differently. I'm going to place all those dies onto the same color pattern paper that I used for the background. Since there is a gradient, I'm placing the bottom layers to the darker areas and the upper layers onto the lighter areas. I've die cut the entire set at one go, and here are all the die cuts that I get. Please notice that this layer has 3 die cuts and that next layer has 2 die cuts. Don't lose those really small pieces. Now let's start with the layering. I'm going to use a liquid adhesive in a needle applicator bottle. The one I'm using is Ranger Multimedia Matte. Aligning the layers turned out to be much easier than I thought. For instance, for this flower, you only have to align the bottom petal, the outline of it, and the rest of the die cut falls into place automatically. I think that using layering die sets is much easier than layering stamp sets. I'm using a guide to help me with the layering, but in many cases you won't even need it. 3 of the flowers also have centers, so I'm attaching those as well. I used white cardstock for the centers to create more contrast. So this is what all the elements of the die set look like when they are assembled. If you are going to create an arrangement, I would suggest to die cut and assemble more elements, and this is exactly what I did. By choosing slightly different colors to create the die-cut layers, you can make the flowers look really different. The same story with the leaves. By the way, by using gradient paper, you are creating the variation of color even within the one layer. To create the flower composition, I'm just going to place all the elements onto the card front. I'm playing around and moving them as much as I want to. This is a huge advantage, by the way. Using die cuts gives you a lot of freedom. I don't even know what I would do if I had to create such big arrangement with the stamps, since you don't have a right for a mistake. Once it's stamped, it will be there. I'm attaching the largest flower with a foam square. This one is going to be the focal one, and I don't want it to be overlapped with anything else. Then I can tuck other flowers as well as the leaves behind this one. I'm using the darker flowers and leaves on a white part of my card, and I'm using the lighter flowers and white leaves on a dark part of the card. Once I'm happy with the placement, I can use some adhesive and stick down the elements. I'm arranging all the flowers diagonally. I started in the center and then I'm moving on towards the corners. I'm trying to cover up the edge of the triangle completely. As always with similar compositions, you are starting with the largest elements and then you are moving to smaller ones, and finally you are using the very smallest ones to fill in the empty spaces. When attaching flowers to the trellis, it's a good idea to place a non-stick sheet of paper underneath. This way you are not going to stick the flowers to the back of the card and you won't leave any traces of glue. I'm using the backing from the foam squares, but the wax paper will do just as fine. Now it's time for attaching the smallest elements, so I'm clipping the leaves apart and attaching only the smaller ones at the corners as well as behind the flowers. A small spatula is a really handy tool. Here you can see, although I have already stuck down that flower, I can lift it up a little bit and then I'm tucking the leaf behind. I'm using the same trick on the trellis. The spatula I'm using is also tool-in-one by Spellbinders. At this point I have just one last leaflet and I'm going to trim off all the leaves from this little branch and fill in the spaces and balance out the entire composition. This time I had no leftovers whatsoever. The card is nearly finished now, there's only one finishing touch left. You have probably noticed that there are tiny white splashes on the blue paper for the stars, and I'm going to balance them out by using blue splashes on the white part of the card. So I have squeezed out some chipped sapphire distress ink onto the acrylic block. Now I'm diluting it with the water and I'm using the fine tip brush to create the splattering. Although working with the layering die cuts is easier to me than working with layering stamps, this is not the type of the card that you can make in 5 minutes, definitely. This process does require multiple die cutting and manipulating small pieces. Nevertheless, don't be intimidated. I think the result is totally worth the effort, and I actually find the process of playing with the small pieces quite soothing. Thank you so much for watching. If you find this video useful, please like, subscribe, and I will be seeing you again really soon. Have a wonderful day.